Why should poor working class people avoid people like Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux?
Well, overall, they individualize everything. Self-help has been around for a long time. You can go back to the 1930s. There was a very popular book that was published in 1937 called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's considered to be one of the first big self-help books. And self-help has been around for a long time. But what I've noticed is particularly interesting about these individuals, the new round of self-help that seems to be politically charged and right-wing, is that it seems to be rather than uplifting and positive, here are things you can do to get your life together, it seems to be very focused on the negative. Here's a collection of people that have screwed up in some way. They're to blame for their own problems, right? I know Jordan Peterson, you'll hear him talk about people and describe them as useless or worthless, right? And here's a list of people who've screwed up in some way. They've made some mistake. Don't be like them. They're useless. They're worthless. They're disgusting. They're and kind of blaming people. If you individualize everything, if everything's about individual choices, then you can't think in terms of bigger societies. You can't think of context. Everything's about how good an individual is. And then you start listing a group of people who've made a negative choice or made something, blaming them for their problems. It's particularly dangerous. And one thing that I've noticed is that, you know, they have done studies where they talked about people that are more conservative tend to be more easily grossed out or disgusted, right? And that he's playing on that. You know, people that are poor, will get away from them. They're disgusting. People that have a disease, perhaps, get away from them. They're disgusting. You know, and we're going to clean the world by staying away from the problematic people. You know, it's almost like kind of an OCD mentality. And it's weird because it's kind of the mirror opposite of a big problem I see in left-wing circles, which in left-wing circles, there's almost an attraction to anything that is perceived as gross or anything that's perceived as weak or anything that's perceived as a victim or oppressed. And that's problematic as well. And I think that you know, on the left, if anything is perceived as strong or powerful, it immediately is labeled to be oppressive. And that there is this fear of anything successful, anything strong, anything powerful. And I think that's why a lot of people might be attracted to the right who might be attracted to the left, but the left puts off this vibe that if you actually get your stuff together, well, then you're the enemy. I always joke that if you want to be eulogized as a leftist, right? If you want to be a leftist revolutionary hero who's praised at Left Forum and has books written about you and has Marxist professors writing their doctoral dissertations on you, what you have to do is lose the revolution. Just lose. And you know what I'm saying? Like Rosa Luxemburg, she lost. So everyone loves her, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's all kinds of anarchists in Spain. They lost. So all these leftists love them. But Stalin, he won.
Right.
So they don't like Stalin because he won. So he's an oppressor. He's part of the system. It's this weird mindset where there's this attraction to those who fail, and that leftism just kind of becomes the permanent opposition. It becomes kind of the bohemian critique of Western society, and it tends to be very middle class. And it's those who are kind of feeling alienated from the system. They're attracted to anything that is perceived of as weak or somehow not fitting in with society, and that mindset cannot create any kind of revolution. And so I can understand that. And if you look at what you know, the revolutionary movements of the past have done, in a lot of ways, they've done a lot. You know, they've done a lot to help people improve themselves. For example, I know Mao's first published article was about the importance of physical education in school and why it's important to have exercise and sports in school. And that Mao at that point was a high school principal, right? That was his job, and he was talking about why it's important to stay in shape and why, you know, education is not simply a matter of reading books, but it's also a matter of staying physically fit and then unifying everybody by doing exercises and all of that. And I think that's particularly interesting. And that the mindset that we associate with leftism in the West is not the mindset you see associated with leftism in the developing world. One thing that I thought was really neat was when I was in Ecuador for the World Festival of Youth and Students. You know, the World Festival of Youth and Students 2013 was held in like what used to be an airport. It was like this big park in central Quito. And in the morning, I'd see all these kids doing like punches and like karate. You know, they'd be like, you know. And well, it turns out there's a special martial art that Rafael Correa, the Bolivarian leader of Ecuador, had invented. And all the young people got like a free uniform, and they would wake up in the morning and do these like karate moves that the socialist president Correa had taught them. I thought that was very cool. And that was a big part of his you know, socialist movement, was this new martial art that they've invented in Ecuador. I think that's pretty neat, you know. So I think there's a lot that can be learned. I know in China now there's a big thing with that they call square dancing, but it's not like hillbilly square dancing. It's they dance in public squares. It's a big movement the Chinese Communist Party is promoting, where people get together and exercise in public squares, like in unison together right now. It's a big movement taking place across China. People associate it with President Xi and his revival of the Chinese Communist Party and its more Marxist angles and kind of so I think that there's things we can learn from all of this. There's aspects of Peterson that I would certainly reject, but there's aspects of him that I think you can learn from. It's just a matter of looking into things. But whenever the man talks about communism, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, and there's all these statements that get made that are just so wildly inaccurate, but no one will challenge them. There's one clip where Jordan Peterson says that the Tsar's government in Russia was bad, but it was a paradise compared to what the Bolsheviks created. Now, think about that statement, though, right? There was no running water in most of the country under the Tsar. There was no electricity. There was 60% illiteracy. So how in the world can anyone say that Tsarist Russia was a paradise compared to what the Bolsheviks created? I mean, the Bolsheviks built universities. They fed people. I mean, you can be critical of what went on, and you can say that there were things in that society that were not right. But to say that Tsarist Russia was a paradise compared to the Soviet Union, that statement shouldn't pass.
Right.
No one should be able to say that with a straight face. You know, that's just ridiculous. But he says this stuff because he's pandering to anti-communism.
Right.